Yeah, there's six here, John Mark, that study the way of mastery, and we started a class August the 4th of this year. And we do one lesson a month, and we're absolutely loving it. And right now we're on lesson 3, which is the power of forgiveness,
Ah, beautiful.
which is, oh my God, I have taken it to quantum forgiveness now. Like I'm so excited, and I'm seeing so many different exciting, just everything is opening up for me, and I'm feeling totally different. And oh, I'm loving it. And John Mark, I listen to your videos every single day, and sometimes 4, 6 hours a day as I'm
Oh
working.
my God.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just loving it. You're really, really helping me, John Mark. I love your energy. I love your excitement. I love your exuberance. Actually, if you were to sit there and just read the phone book, I think I would get it all because I'm just loving your exuberance and your dedication. And so thank you, John Mark, and
Well,
welcome.
you're very welcome. I celebrate you, Rachel, and I think it's appropriate to stop and celebrate each and every one of you. If he hasn't said it yet in the way of mastery, you're going to get to Jesus saying, and I hope you guys are actually listening to him speak, not just reading it off the words, because that's like taking a shower in a raincoat. If you just read it, you don't really get the effect. You really need to hear his lightness of his humor, the inflections, the emphasis. I mean, it's a whole different deal because you're actually hearing him speak, not just taking black and white letters off of a page, which is really, really, really important. So,
Mm.
but I just want to celebrate you because he's going to say, if he hasn't said it yet, I don't think he's said it by lesson 3, that the way of mastery is the final pathway that any soul will ever need to come fully home into the reunion of their true being.
Mm-hmm.
The final one you'll ever need.
Beautiful.
So, for those of you who haven't really explored the length of your soul's incredible journey over measures of time that are inconceivable, just take a moment and relax and frigging celebrate. I have come to the last little corner of a map that I need, and celebrate that you've drawn that into your awareness. And you get to do it with a bunch of other friends. I mean, it's one thing to win a race, but it's a lot more fun to do it with a bunch of other people. So I just want to honor and celebrate each of you for your unique journeys into consciousness and drawing this final pathway, this final means of remembrance into your awareness. So I hope you'll relax at this stage and let yourself really relish and enjoy this last bit of this journey and not take it too seriously.
I want to say I'm just absolutely astounded with all of this. And Yeshua is so amazing. He's so funny. And I feel like I'm getting to know him like never before, and just more that I listen to him and have the experiences of it's feeling so much more personal. And the Christ Council and the Ascended Masters Club, and knowing that he he comes not by himself, but he comes with the Christ Council, and just owning my Christness by by demanding and commanding, as he says he wants to step into your Christness, to step into this and own this power. And I used to kind of be like me, but now I'm like, I command clear guidance, and I command this, and you know what, things have ramped up. I've asked the Holy Spirit to bring it on, bring me, let's clean up the basement. And lots of opportunities to be disturbed have been showing up. And it's like, woo, having a Christ ball. And it is so much fun. I'm having so much fun with this. It's just so amazing, and so honored to meet you and to listen to your deep dives into the lessons. It's just so helpful. And when I first started listening to you, I finally get dropped in understanding that there's nothing outside of the mind. I just wow. And it keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper. So I just, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, you're very welcome, Nancy. Thank to all of you, because without others to receive that gift that I shared, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So I celebrate the mystery that 10, 15 years later, somehow through the miracle of the internet and whatever else, it's found its way to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just so grateful. Only had to record those once, and they found back in the day, Jesus had to tell the same story over and over and over and over and over, the same parable. He didn't have the benefit of what we have today. So, but I celebrate your enthusiasm, Nancy, and I expect every one of you has felt that joy that comes. That's a combination, a sense of relief and a sense of, I knew it. I knew, something inside you is getting affirmed. And of course, that's always exciting when truth gets affirmed within us. And feeling his true energy, which is completely different than how it's been portrayed on earth for thousands of years. Yeah. And every lesson, whether it's this first 3 or the remaining, 36 minus 3, 33 to go, the first paragraph of every single lesson, he talks about our equality. I mean, he starts with that. He doesn't say, hey, maybe, if you guys own up a little bit and you kiss a little ass and you suffer a little bit more, maybe you'll get, we'll see you as equals. Well, that's just our stuff. So he perceives us all as his equals. And the only difference is we don't. So isn't that cool?
And also that he says we are already masters. That was like, oh my gosh, that we've mastered the ego, and we just start cracking up over that. It's been a huge shift too.
Yeah. Well, we're all descended masters. I mean, we value ascended masters. They're the ones that say, you descended guys are the ones with balls. I mean, you guys are doing the hard work. It's easy up there. Well, it's not really up there, but it's easy not incarnate in a body on a world where everybody's in on this charade. The hardest thing in creation to do is to deny who we really are. So every one of us are masters, and the ones we're tempted to judge the most, well, I think we resent them because they're just playing better than we did. They're just all in more deeply than we were willing to go.
Yeah, and I love that we chose this, and we came in, and that out of this compassion and this, this deep compassion for our love for our brothers and sisters, to come deliberately into this dream to wake us up. That it wasn't not just like, oh, and that makes so much sense to me too. It's like, wow, it came out of here, the compassion. And, in that compassion is that deep love for the self, and that we've, whatever experiences, everything that we've gone through has been chosen, no mistakes, that this is it, that we've chosen every experience, and to come into this dream with the card, the whole forgetting that we are the one, to remember that we are the one, and that yeah. Wow.
Oh yeah, the games we play with ourselves. So do you guys want to talk about the first 3 lessons you've worked on together? Do you want to ask questions? You guys want to just go around the room and we'll do improv jokes? Well, how do you want to do this?
Well, there's 6 of us that have been studying, and then some of us decided to invite others. Like there's I run a total transformation class, and I invited some of my class to come tonight. And there's some here from my last year's class, and that's under Nook Sanchez. Yeah. Under Nook Sanchez.
I know and celebrate Nook. Thank goodness for her work too.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm sure some of them have the books and that are studying on their own. I would like to ask a question, because I'm having difficulty with something, and maybe you can answer that question for me, John Mark. Is that we started it almost 3 months ago now, and there were people who wanted to join within 6 to 9 weeks, and I said no, because we were so deep in it, and we were meeting 3 times a week, and some of us were meeting even more than that, and we were so deep in it, we didn't think it would serve people if they had missed two lessons that we were studying so deeply. But that kind of hurts my heart, because there's a part of me that wants to invite everybody, right?
Of course.
So, but we do that with Take Me to Truth as well. The first 4 weeks it's a year-long course, and the first 4 weeks, after 4 weeks, we close the door to any new members that want to join. So it's something that we do, and I sort of followed that rule. But now I want to open it up to those who are really interested. I just don't know how to do that, John Mark. Maybe you can help me out.
Well, you can. I certainly can appreciate and understand if people get on the bus late, they've missed some of the important foundational work, and that can be a detriment to them because they're missing something that is being built upon. I mean, for instance, right now, lesson 3 of forgiveness, if you don't get how he's sharing forgiveness, if you're carrying the earthly idea of forgiveness, I forgive you because you're a schmuck and I'm better than you. If they're carrying that, the rest of the journey together is not going to be fulfilling for them. Yeah. So it's perfectly appropriate, and it's perfectly okay to say we've taken this journey, and in order to participate in it, we want to keep it to those who have started. But what you can do is point them to the exact same resources and encourage them to start a group. Let them start their own group. The thing that all of us have this truth within us.
Yeah.
And it's there for all of us.
Yeah.
So I understand the reluctance to kind of hold somebody at bay. But Cindy and I have had to do that in our own ongoing work, where we shared what came through me beyond the way of mastery. After that kind of was done, and I was coming into a different level of expression. And I understand that you want to give it to everybody, but everybody's not ready to receive it.
Yes.
And this is Jesus's thing. Don't cast your pearls before swine. I'm not suggesting by any means that these beings are swine, but you don't try and teach somebody who's just learning arithmetic algebra.
Yeah.
And that's not bad or wrong. They're just not at the place of their journey where they can truly receive and hold it.
Thank you.
And when a group is working together, there is incredible power. I mean, the whole 2 or more are joined. And if that group is cohesive, that power is expanded. If there's division within the group or confusion within the group or any of that kind of stuff, it doesn't serve all beings in the group to the highest and best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you could always keep a list and say, hey, if we do another one, or here are the resources, start your own group, whatever the case may be. But likewise, if we were taking a journey all together and the plane's already taken off, what good is it to try and go back, to pick people up who missed the flight? Well, they'll have to catch a different flight, so to speak.
Okay. Thank you for that, John Mark.
Yeah. And don't harbor any whatever about it, because as Nancy said earlier, it's all perfect. Don't let that sense of, oh, I should be doing something different than what I feel called to do limit me. Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you for offering it, Rachel.
Okay.
Carrie,
Carrie.
you had your hand up.
Yeah, I have a couple questions, and so does my phone, apparently. So what is it? I always assumed that you're John Mark Stroud, and when you are channeling Jesus, you refer to yourself as JM, and I'm wrong in that. Am I confused in that?
No, what you're confused about is they are 2 different, distinct embodied beings. There is John Mark Stroud, me. There is John Mark Hammer, who is the being who channeled Yeshua originally. We both just happen to be named John Mark. And
Mhm.
JM does his work and I do my work. So I was not the original embodied channel of the Web Mastery. John Mark Hammer was. And we don't look anything alike. He's totally bald. He's probably 10 or 15, 20 years older than I am. He and I've met many times, but that's his journey, and I'm on my journey. And what I share is, that which comes through my communion around this work.
So
But-
then who has the property by Abiquiu? Is it you or the other one?
Well, that is a very long, convoluted, and confusing story that I will just say that land is currently held by the Shanti Cristo Foundation,
Mhm.
of which JM was John Mark Hammer. JM, the original chanter, was the creator of that foundation, but has not been participating with them for decades.
So do you said the way of mastery would be like everything you needed to know. Did you channel the last however many lessons of it then? So like I have like all these, the way of the servant, the way of the heart, the early teaching.
All of that
way of
is
mastery.
JM Hammer's work.
And then
And
so
if by
where-
chance you guys all think I'm JM Hammer and that you've got the wrong John Mark on this call,
No,
feel
no.
free to just say, hey, we got the wrong
I was-
dude, man. See ya.
no, no,
No, we don't.
I just was wanting some clarification.
Sure.
So where does David Shock fit in on all this? Because like he's been reading those and I was reading those like 1 month at a time like that with him.
Sure. David Schock is a very long-term student and participant with the Way of Mastery and has been deeply involved with John Mark Hammer in the Way of Mastery community for a couple of decades. So he's kind of the resident historian within the Way of Mastery because he's been around almost as long as JM.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say that the forgiveness one, lesson 3, is my favorite. Well,
Well, so far you got 33
I
more to
really
go.
did. Well, I mean, no, I mean, I've listened to the whole book many times, but like lesson 3, forgiveness, over and over. And then I went ahead and listened to the first one in the second book. Oh, my heart. It was talking about seeing the person in the car next to you and feeling with, and I was like, oh, but of course you got to go back and do the work to get there, so that definitely makes sense. So
Yeah.
I appreciate the plane analogy. That's a really good one.
Yeah, you're
Because
welcome.
Rachel, you do have a cohesiveness with the group. I understand that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You get this group. I don't know his mentality, but you support each other. You know each other. It's
There's a
it's
vibe.
good. Yeah, there's stuff that you can't really explain, but it's good.
Well, it's really shared experience that's of much more value than shared understanding. If you
Right.
guys have ever participated in groups where it seems as though the agenda is that everybody has one understanding, that is a completely mental level kind of thing. And while there's some value in that, that is far and away from actually experiencing something and knowing it in a way that you can share that gnosis directly with another being. Yeah.
I get it.
Cool. Well, thank you
John
for the
Paul.
questions, Carrie. And by the way, any questions that I answer, please don't take it's like, well, John Mark said, take it inside to your own spirit and your own communion. And if it resonates with you, great. If not, throw it out. I'm
Or
no
we'll
greater
say-
authority. I have no greater connection to that truth than you do. I may have just been practicing a little longer.
So what did you channel then?
Ultimately, my own spirit, my own infinite expression of God that is all knowing, all being, all powerful, all joy, all wisdom.
Same as all of us, because we are
Um,
one.
That's right. But every one of us, despite the fact that we're one, we always and forever will have a unique expression. We
Mhm.
never lose that. It only gets ceaselessly expanded.
Did you write these down anywhere in any books or anything else?
No, people have asked me to write books, and if I were to write a book, it would be about 100 pages that were blank. And people would ask me questions. I would say, well, I addressed that on page 60. Did you go? Did you read it? Go to page 60 and contemplate. Because here's the thing about questions. If you have the question in your consciousness, that spirit saying you also have the answer.
Yeah, I get it.
It's mine that says I have to go find that answer outside of myself. It's really the spirit within saying, if this question is here and you're willing to turn towards it, you already know the answer.
Definitely.
And that's the point at which projection, seeking truth outside of oneself, starts to dissipate, and we start to call it forth from within. Because we never really ask a question we're not prepared to truly know the answer to. I mean, consciousness just works that way. We don't ask bigger questions than we can hold in our consciousness, right? I mean, that's one of the very loving things about consciousness waking itself up quite gently. So if the question comes, wow, I'm going to arrest my habit of reaching outside of myself for the answer, or going to look for it in a book or a text, and I'm going to be still and go, wow, what if my mind thinks I don't know the answer, but the question is inviting me to know the answer within my own being? And then you begin to interact with spirit in an entirely different way within your own being. But if you're going to play that game, which is a lot of fun, by the way, and can be quite frustrating for the mind, cast the doors wide open, and please don't insist that the spirit bring you answers in words. Because some of us are clairaudient and it's very easy to get them that way, but it's also the most confusing way. I mean, if you look at all the conflict that you've ever had in your life with other people, how much of it was misunderstanding what people are trying to say, right? So if you get answers back in words, they can similarly be easily misunderstood. What I would invite you to reach for is what I call gnosis, which is a knowing that transcends the symbols of words. And when you really open to that, you can get it all in an instant. It may take you a while to unpack it on a level that your mind can understand it, but you'll simply know it all at once. Because, you know, there is no time. So knowing doesn't have to be like words and building blocks and understandings. They don't have to be built upon each other. And I'll give you a simple example. Everybody actually already knows this gnosis that I talk about. And please forgive me, but this example is a little crude. So if you're driving and you all of a sudden, out of the blue, get this incredible urge that you need to go number 2, you just know. You don't require words, you just know. And not only do you know, and you don't question the knowing, you don't go, I wonder if that's an illusion. I wonder if I really got to go. Not only do you know whether you better find the closest convenience store and waddle the whole way in to the restroom, or you could go another 25 miles to a rest area. Yes. So this is direct knowing that is transcendent. And we all have this. We actually all are, we have it more than we actually realize that we have it. So let those questions that arrive in mind be an invitation to drop deeper into knowing, and then the questions won't be relevant anymore. Because you actually only need questions to understand, but when you know something, you just know it. You don't need the questions anymore. You don't need the foundation of understanding, because you've experienced it, and in the experience, you know. So this is the movement away from studentship and understanding and study to embodiment, to being, to presence kind of thing.
Thank you, Carrie. Those were, you asked a lot of questions I have. John Mark, I'm new to this particular study. I'm not one of the original 6. I asked to come in 2 months ago. And we
So you
we
were the
held
last
back.
one running down the boarding gate. Let me on, let me on.
No, I see some faces here, I think, who came in even after I asked. But anyway, the question I have is, if we wind up having to do something on our own, I find two guys with the same front name, multiple websites, a huge number of publishings, and how to do this. I know that some other, there are leader-led, there are, workshops where a person provides stuff. It sounds as though, from what I understand, that Rachel and the 6 or 8 people involved are doing a self-directed thing. How do you find people get started in the material, and what kind of works for people?
Well, that's a great question, Terry. And the most important thing is to throw out everything you think you know.
Okay.
Because
Yeah, I've
all
had
of
to
us,
do that
all of
already,
all of
including
us
your
have been
name.
indoctrinated in education systems, right?
Yeah.
That tell us it's a very formatted, kind of rigid type thing. The truth of the matter is, everybody's spirit already knows everything. I mean, we already are the full expression of God. So the real question is, what is the most natural, easy, and effortless way for me to move from where I am to the deepest possible knowing? Because, for instance, I'm clairaudient. I can't read. If I have to read, I have to drop way down to my level of my, 8th grade little mind to read the words on the page, and I get absolutely nothing out of it. But if I can do what I call move into presence, and I hear it, it just activates total knowing for me immediately. That's what works for me. One of my kids, she was very kinesthetic. She could not learn her spelling unless she was moving. So we would do jumping jacks while we were practicing her words for the week, because she was very kinesthetic. She needed to be moving. Some people are very, very visual. They need visual symbols to kind of trigger. So the important thing is, find what works for you and follow that path. If by chance others are on the same journey, have enough flexibility in your community to allow everybody to find the sweet spot that works for them, because we all have a natural way in which remembrance comes most easily. So there isn't a right way, there isn't a wrong way, there's the unique way that will be the easiest path for you. And that's what Spirit is inviting all of us to. I mean, we have these ideas that this is hard, it's going to take a long time, I'm going to have to sacrifice, I got to prove something. All that's just human bullshit. The Spirit is just trying to reawaken us, bring us to our own remembrance in the simplest, most direct, easy way possible. So if you're willing to hold that same intent and align to that, let it unfold, because the pathway will be made for you. There isn't a right way, there isn't a wrong way, and you're not asked to do it the way anybody else has done it.
I'm hearing that the method of absorption, maybe call it absorption, is unique to each individual. But you did say earlier that sequence seems to have some relevance. Like, if you don't understand the concept of, you think the traditional idea of forgiveness, the forgiveness concept,
Sure.
that most of us many of us have done Nook's work with the Take Me to Truth, and so we understand that. But so there is some sequence that we should understand, and finding that sequence is also,
To a point, but don't become dependent on sequence. Don't become dependent on process. Revelation transcends all of that. And what we want to be is embodied living in revelation, transcendent of time and space. So use the symbols of process or linear things while it's necessary, but don't hold on to it as though it's an absolute. Don't make it a requirement, because then you're forcing Spirit to break it down into bite-sized pieces and give it to you like crumbs on a path, when you could, boom, get the whole thing. Makes sense?
Thank you.
Yeah, so use it as a tool, just don't become dependent on it.
John Mark, I find your lessons very, they wake me up. I listen to it every day, every night. I was just doing the eraser one, and it's about unlearning. It's about unlearning, going to God with empty hands.
Yes.
That has been so profound, like this week for me, just letting go of everything. And it's saying how learning is perpetuating this belief that we are separated from God. We are not who we truly are, and we have to learn and strive to become what we already are.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I'm moving
very
more.
beautifully said, Roberta.
That's yours, yes. But it's moving into being that's been helping me more because I'm more intellectual. So for the past 2 years, I've been focusing on the intellectual side. Now it's being. And your lessons help daily.
Well, you know, an intellectual understanding, we don't want to poo-poo it as though it's wrong or bad. An intellectual understanding is like getting you to the welcome mat in front of a doorway. If you have a sufficient intellectual understanding and you recognize the intellectual understanding is not the actual knowing, it's an invitation, then you're willing to open that door and step across a threshold into an experience without fear. So an intellectual understanding can be very helpful, because without the intellectual understanding, generally we won't go anywhere near that door. You see, you know what I mean? We don't want to have that experience because we fear the unknown. We fear what experience may be lying there. So an intellectual understanding can be helpful. Just again, like time, don't become dependent and mistake the intellectual understanding as fact, because that's still rooted in symbols. And in case you have, if you ever wonder, if you have an intellectual understanding, you just know and you're absolutely certain about it, and then somebody asks you one simple question and all of a sudden you're in doubt again, that's not really knowing. This is a knowing that transcends doubt.
Yes, I think it's because I was using the intellectual more as a holding me back.
Well, I mean, but it brought you here.
But it brought me here now.
Maybe it didn't hold you back as much as you thought, but maybe it might hold you back more in the future than you think if you still rely on that as your tool. You know, and some of us, you know, if you're really, really smart and like an expert in something, that can become a much more prominent aspect of our identity that we're unwilling to let go because we've become an expert at something. We've valued it so much and it's gotten us so much recognition or acclaim or success or money or whatever. And it's those are aspects of our consciousness or our identity that we're often most unwilling to release because we think that we valued it so much more and we've worked so hard at it.
Well, I brought you survival.
Well, whatever the case may be, you know, whatever the benefits may have been, but those benefits are always of this world. And what we're waking up to are eternal benefits that are far transcendent of this world. But to your point, learning reinforces I don't know. And the truth of the matter is, if we're willing to reach for it, knowing will come. And we can recognize that we do know and come to live and express that knowing rather than learning. Because every time we seek to learn, we're really saying, God created me less than all knowing. And if through my own effort, I can get there if I keep learning and keep learning, keep learning, keep learning. And there's the grand illusion of time.
It's more about trust too. And you were willing to trust.
Well, yes and no. I was willing to trust the unknown, but the more I became aware of how my own mind operated, I didn't trust it. I distrusted thinking. I distrusted limits in my own mind. I distrusted the fear that was operating in my own mind. So, I mean, I know it sounds magnanimous to say I trusted, but I just looked at what was going on in me and didn't like that at all. So I distrusted more than I trusted spirit. I distrusted the ego that was operating in my own consciousness. So the alternative of spirit was significantly more appealing for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Stephanie, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I guess I'll ask because you sort of answered it. And thank you so much for being here, and Rachel for opening this up to all of us to be here. I'm one of the ones that was invited, and yeah, my question, I think you've answered that. I feel like there's been this climbing on the rungs of the ladder, right? All these years of the seeker and all the different teachings coming in, and then things quite accelerated with A Course in Miracles. And I studied with a couple of other teachers before finding Nook. And then in that process, the Infinite Way came in with Joel Goldsmith, which is beautiful. And then there's also been the Christian Science teachings with Mrs. Eddy. And so there's all these beautiful.
That's Corinne's sweet spot.
Yeah, that's right. This kind of weaving this this triad. But there is a way of mastery, and I have the book. I have several of the books, and it just keeps, knocking at the door, so to speak. And I guess there's an ego piece within me that's still saying, am I doing the right thing? Am I following the right teaching? There's only one way to do this. And maybe but I'm just looking at these are just, again, rungs on the ladder, and it's preparing you, as you were saying, in that intellectual understanding. But it's at the point where you're needing that knowing, and that is missing for me. I mean, it's better, but it's still, that's an issue. So
Sure. Well, truth is in every pathway, and you can tell the incredible love of Spirit that it gives it in so many incredible different ways, through so many different channels, through so many different pathways, because it knows we're all unique and different. I kind of look at it this way, that every pathway is like a river, right? They're all going to the same place. They all arrive at the same ocean. And the ocean welcomes every river equally. It doesn't say, oh, I can't wait for the Course in Miracles river to pour into myself. But, that other pathway, the Buddhist pathway, I wish that would never come. But the ocean simply welcomes them all absolutely, utterly equally. So pathways are just a means to take us from where we think we are to where we truly have always been. So long as you're in a river, you're doing just fine. There's not a right one and there's not a wrong one. Even the ocean even lets drops of rain drop dead in without even going through a river, right? It welcomes those just as equally. And here's the thing. So all water, whether it's in the ocean, in a river, in a raindrop, on top of a mountain, frozen in a solid block of ice, all water has the exact same essential essence: wetness. The water in the ocean's not more wet than the water in the stream, and it's not more wet than the water in the raindrop. So Spirit, being the wetness, the essence, is present in every damn bit of it. So the simple matter is, you can't screw it up. You can delay it if you want. You can get out of the river and sit on the side and contemplate, well, which is the right river? That might not be the most efficient use of your time, but Spirit is operable as that wetness in every pathway that exists throughout all time and space. So you cannot screw it up, but find the river that you feel most called to, and ride that river. And while the destination is the ocean, rather than focusing on the ocean in some distant time, focus on the wetness, which is always ever present, no matter where you're at. Because that wetness will connect you to the essence of the ocean, whether you physically believe yourself to be there or not.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, John, Mark, it's Andrew. Thank you.
Andrew, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Actually, you know what? I am one of the 6 people in the group. And it's interesting because last month in the dream, I got COVID. So you want to tell, I've never had COVID before. and I got sick. This month we're on the world of forgiveness, and I find myself drawn into the world of conflict. So it's interesting that you said that the distrusting your own thinking more so than, let's say, trusting spirit. Can you elaborate more on that? Like, what does that actually mean? Because that's a totally counterintuitive approach or statement that most people that are on a spiritual path want you to extend on. Here's all the great things my spirit does for me. I really want to undo my ego. The ego, let's say the ego that I call in the dream. But I'll tell you, brother, I mean, this month's a struggle. I'm drawn, I have a fascination for conflict.
Well,
And
well done, brother.
And I don't know how to, I want to stake it. Like, I really want to stake it off. And it's coming up. It's really all coming up. And I'm having a struggle, frankly, because it's so much of it. I'm drowning in it. That's what it kind of feels like,
Well, let me ask you this, Andrew. Have you mastered ego? I mean, are you completely done? Or is there any moisture in the sponge left that you haven't squeezed out that you really think you need to experience?
I really don't think there's any more. Okay. I mean, when you say you've tasted everything, you've done everything. I mean, it's literally, I'm in complete, my whole being goes, yeah, I'm done with that.
Okay, well, all right. Well, that's an important point. Because if you weren't, I was going to say, you guys should go all in. You need to finish that stuff off. Go ahead, and there's nothing wrong with it. Go ahead and finish it off so that you and your spirit don't have some little niggling, oh, I didn't quite taste that flavor of ice cream of ego, and maybe I should.
Well,
I think I'll incarnate again just to get that last little thing taken.
It's interesting because the go all in thing, I think, is actually what has been happening in the last few days. I have been going all in, and I'm in the same. I got to the same place, which is it's no different. Like it's. I always end up back at the same place, which is this is not where I belong. And I've had so many tastes of the other side, for lack of a better word. The complete, at the end of lesson 1, I had this complete freedom in that, like my mind just let go. And I was able to literally sit for 24 hours in complete bliss, not doing anything, just in a place of being. And it's not about striving to get there. It's not about that. It's just about, like this. It's the words you said where I'm at the point where the ego, I'm just done with it, but I don't know how to turn it off.
Okay. So this is a fascinating topic of discussion. Thank you for bringing it up, Andrew. Let's have some fun with this. So we all, I'm safe to assume that everybody on the call here, your primary role is to wake up from the ego and to claim your Christedness, your spirit. Again, for anyone, if you haven't finished it, you got a little resentment, you still need to polish off, you got some conflict, you still want to work out, go ahead, go for it. It's perfectly okay. But if you truly are done, what will happen is that your shit will come up, because the operating system that was operating unconsciously, the ego, those things are going to come up to be seen. You'll see the truth of what's been operating in you, and you'll be set free to choose again. Will I keep this or will I let it go? This is another one of Jesus's ancient teachings. You'll see the truth and the truth will set you free. What he said was, you will see the truth of what's been operating within you, and you'll be set free to choose anew. You're free to keep it or you're free to let it go. But this is immediately what happens. I'm going to go all in. So the Spirit says, okay, Andrew, here it comes. And it comes. And rather than recognizing that's exactly the byproduct of a choice to go all in, we think I fucked something up. I'm doing something wrong. This should not be here. The more the stuff comes up, the more I would celebrate, because I knew it was coming up so that I could see it and choose would I keep it or not. So the presence of it coming up was the very stepping stone upon which I stood to claim freedom from it. So it's never evidence that you're doing something wrong or that should not be there. It's giving you an opportunity to consciously choose where you have unconsciously been choosing before. So I know, again, this is counterintuitive. Celebrate the stuff when it comes up, because you're at the threshold of letting it go, hopefully to never be seen or experienced again, or to re-suppress it. And the immediacy of the ego's tendency to suppress, why is this here? Why am I doing something wrong? This shouldn't be happening. Those are the initial steps of suppression. Instead of celebration, oh my God, I had not seen this level of darkness before. And now that I can see it so clearly, it smells bad. It tastes bad. I would not choose to keep this. And I forgive myself that creation, and I'm going to set myself free from this. Yeah. So if you get to the stage where you embrace the very things that the ego would resist, you then have actually even deployed the ego for your benefit. And I know this sounds a little counterintuitive, but you will use the ego's fear-based response to be a greater presence of your own spirit. Because if you truly want to be rid of it, you got to see it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the interesting dynamic is, you know, I have enough recognition that, oh, I can choose again. This is coming up for my benefit, you know, as it talks about in the lesson, you know, it's my life, right? My life is my spiritual path. And that's the struggle that I'm having, is that it's just coming in waves. And I don't want to say struggle. It's you know, and it's funny because I literally sit down and it's, you know, and I ask, okay, so what is my attachment to conflict? What is the attachment? And the conflict that's playing out, you know, it's in the news, it's in social media, it's that conflict. So I don't know if it's like unresolved stuff from my past and, you know, I've had some interesting things come up around it, but it really seems like we're significantly dredging the bottom of the river.
Well, thank goodness humanity's seeing it.
Yeah.
Because if we're going to be free, we have to see it and choose for something else. Because if we leave it suppressed, it will continue to operate unconsciously in us individually and collectively.
Yeah.
But I'd like to talk a little bit more about when stuff comes up.
Yep.
I know we're all eager to get rid of it. I understand the immediacy with which we want to get rid of it. But in everything that you have ever experienced is the incredibly precious jewel of your free will power to create it. Because we all had the power to choose for ego. We all had the power to choose for conflict or abandonment or shame or guilt or whatever our unique versions were. And it's important that you do not throw out your creatorship in the egoic creations that you no longer want.
Yeah. Because
you will disempower your Christed creativity if you throw them out in negativity. They're an opportunity for you to own, I have created this. Yeah. I'm the one who's created this addiction to conflict or this propensity for conflict. What has it brought me? How has it shaped my experience? What have I learned from it? What benefit has the freedom to express that been? Because you don't just want to throw it out and throw the power of
Yeah.
creation and freedom out with it. You want to recreate from that same power what you would prefer.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that's the
Really
whole
important
thing.
distinction.
Yeah, the whole thing of allowing and recognizing that, you know, these are my creations coming back to me for, you know, for me to welcome them home, right? I mean, I can't, but again, it's like dodging, it's literally like dodging bullets.
Well, Andrew, I would encourage you to recognize that if in spirit, you are absolutely invulnerable to any physical thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I know COVID is a very unwelcome and uncomfortable physical experience, but there is a point at which within our being, we recognize our invulnerable spiritual nature.
Yeah.
And that is untouched by any physical experience, by any emotional experience, by any memory, by anything. And when we reawaken to that and can stand in that incredible invulnerable power, then we realize nothing can touch us. And that's when we begin to see things far outside of the scope of our little world. We begin to see large collective things, because we're standing literally as the presence of Christ looking upon the whole of creation. And we can do so in great innocence, in great wonder, and in great peace. So, you know, all of this is contributive. Just everything is contributive if you're willing to use it that way with spirit as your guide.
Yeah, it's, you know, you've literally just come full circle to where I have myself in recognizing that I just have to let it all go. I have to let it go, and just keep practicing the forgiveness 70 times, 7 times.
Well, no doubt, but I would like to clarify something, Andrew. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah,
You're free to let it go or not. And this is a really important thing, because if in your own minds you're at a have to stage, you've already abandoned your own freedom.
All right.
I'm free to keep this or not. I'm free to let this go or not. If you're not operating from a state of freedom, if you're operating from mandates of should, must, and ought to, and he's going to get to this, by the way, I think in the very next lesson. If not 4, it's coming in 5.
Well, we've already been burning the pieces of paper, so that was lesson 2.
Yeah, okay, there you go. So I was free to create this, and I'm free to let it go, and I let it go on my terms. The universe doesn't have a gun to anybody's head saying you got to let this go now. You really need to operate from a level of authority and freedom, or you're devaluing your own authority, your own power.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I have a question tangential to that too. Are you done, Andrew? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, indeed. Thank you, John Mark.
Thanks for the good question, Andrew. And I hope you're feeling better physically too, bro.
Thanks.
Hi, Missy.
Hi. When emotional or physical pain comes up, I get confused between I'm supposed to feel it to release it, or because I have the power of God's child, I can demand that it goes. I want nothing to do with it.
Sure. Well, that's an interesting question. And there are many different camps of forgiveness. There's the quantum 7-step camp. There's the get ye behind me camp. There's the feel it to heal it camp, right? I mean, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm not saying any of them are wrong, and I'm not saying any of them are right. But the important thing, and I touched on it in my close with Andrew, is anything that comes is the effect of your creative participation. And if you want to throw out your creations in a negative way, this is wrong, this is bad, get ye out of here, what are you saying about the creator, you, who manifested that experience?
But am I not being creative in saying I'm done with you, you can leave now?
Of course you can. But do you really own that as a creation, or do you look down on it as though it's something that should never have been and shouldn't be there. I mean, to use Yeshua's lesson of forgiveness,
do.
how are you looking at it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the real important thing. And the reason I emphasize this is we're all creators. I mean, we were created to create. That's the whole created in the likeness of the creator. We're all created to create. And if we devalue our creations, even those painful ones, those negative ones, those stinky ones, the ones we're ashamed of, if we devalue our creative ability and participation in them, we will unknowingly be limiting ourselves. Because here's the thing, I am absolutely free to create as much anger, as much rage, as much conflict, as much anything. And because I'm free to create it, I'm free not to create it. If I hold in my mind that that's bad or wrong and should never be, I have limited my own freedom. And let's all be clear, the record of Jesus is clear. He got angry. He got angry because he was free to get angry, because that was something that was helpful in the circumstance. So I'm free to create any emotional state of being. I'm free to create joy. I'm free to create pain. I'm free to create limits. I'm free to create limitlessly. But by claiming that level of freedom and stepping into that authority, rather than working from some unconscious database of what's ego bad and wrong and has to go, you're limiting your own power. I mean, I know this is going to sound counterintuitive, but the startling proof of how radically free we are is the dream of separation. The fact that we could do the impossible and God says, yes, knock yourself out. That's the proof of how free we are. Nothing was wrong about it. Nothing was bad about it. No doubt it didn't create the best experiences, but we're free to create different experiences if we wish. So there's not a right way and a wrong way to release. I'm just inviting you into a place of creative authority and free will choice with any of your experiences, whether they're stuff coming up for release or whether you're contemplating new things you'd like to create. Well, Missy?
Stuff coming up from the past to be released. It didn't answer my question. I'm sorry, I don't get it. Am I supposed to feel the emotion before I let it go?
There is no supposed to, Missy. And a lot of people will suggest to you that there's a right way and a wrong way. And that might just be because that's the way they look at it. There's not a right way and a wrong way. If it were me and something came from my past, I would say to myself, this is my creation. Let me understand the power with which I use to create this experience. Now, what would I like to do with it?
Okay,
How would I like to use my creative power in relationship to that now?
Thank you. That's it. I got it.
Okay. And that's different than what a lot of people teach, because but I'm looking upon my creations not through the lens of any judgment or right or wrong. I'm looking at them as my own creations, and if I can discover my power in them, even to create anything, I can heighten that power to create what I would prefer.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. But I will just say this, that camp of feel it to heal it, you can feel something to the point that you indulge the shit out of it and actually not process it at all. So there's denial on one side that never works. There's indulgence on the other side that doesn't work. The authority in the middle is what's really empowering.
That is really good. And my new catchphrase is, it smells bad.
Yes. That's true. And I just want to go on record here. I created some of the worst smelling stuff ever. You know.
Mm.
And what this will also engender in you, which is a side benefit that I never understood until I was actually living it, I began to appreciate other beings' creations for their creativity, not looking at them as they're in their ego, through judgment, through a lens that made them less than. I began to really appreciate their creative power. And as I knew it in me, I know they have the power to transfigure it when they're ready. I don't have to save them. They've got the power to do it when they're ready. Thanks for the good question, Missy.
Go ahead.
John Mark, Ariana had her hand up a little while ago if she wants to jump in.
Hi, Ariana.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, so be it.
I'll just throw something in then. So I think you were saying if you're looking at something from your past and you continue to feel guilty and judge it, that removes from you the ability to change how you deal with it and make a choice.
Yeah, you're still giving it a meaning that's going to stick. You haven't brought it to a place of neutrality. You haven't brought it to a place of authority where you can recreate that energy into something else. Because all these emotional states that we don't like, it's our own energy. We crafted it. We molded it into that in our own beings. And all we're doing is repurposing our own creations to create differently.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lacey, did you have a question?
I did. I just finished chapter 8 in the Way of Mastery, which talks about picking up, deciding what pebble you want to pick up and throw kaplunk with.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, and you did touch on it a bit when you talked about, for me, it's like when something comes up, which seems to be, everything is coming up pretty quickly now. It's when I don't immediately, I'm not yet able to go, oh, wow, look at how I created that. Isn't that wonderful? And, now I can choose. Now thank you very much, but I've had enough of you. I want to pick up a different pebble.
Sure.
And throw it in the ocean. So does it just take practice? Like just practice, like when something comes up to go, oh, that shift from being able to go, oh, I wish that wouldn't reside in me, to I'm grateful I went through that and now I want to make a different choice. That's
your question.
Yeah, like,
well, I'll address it. So you guys just did lesson 3. Yeshua talked about, him being nailed to the cross. And he says, because I had practiced this forgiveness so long, it was automatic.
Yeah.
So of course, practice helps. But more importantly, is the shift of your nature from I'm this body and I'm trying to get all this right in order to get God's approval or to wake up or whatever, to I am already a creator, I have always been a creator, and all I can ever experience are my own creations. It's a different orientation to existence, to life, to your being, that you then will look through upon all of your own experience. So if you're trying to get rid of stuff to meet some idol of, oh, I have to be purged of this, I have to be purified, I have to be perfect, whatever the case may be, you understand that would be a different orientation then
Right.
this is my creative energy. So it's really a question of what is your intent? Because you can't come to love something if your deeper intent is to get rid of it.
Yeah.
You can't come to appreciate it if your intent is to get rid of it to fulfill some idol that you think you're supposed to be. So what I would offer you is all these things are an opportunity to know thyself. Those were pebbles you threw in your pond in the past. And if you can realize, even though they smell bad and they stink and they taste bad, if you can discover how powerful because you created real experiences with what we might call those negative pebbles, yes?
Mm-hmm.
If you can create that real an experience with negative pebbles, don't you also want the same power to create equally as real experiences with what you might call positive pebbles?
Right.
You see what I mean? So it's really a shift in orientation from discovering oneself as a creator to ego trying to fulfill some idol of what it thinks it is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that is a profound shift in orientation to oneself and one's journey. I hope that helps in some way.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Agatha, I see you've got your hand up.
Okay, there we go. Hi.
How
Thank
you
you, everyone.
doing?
This is awesome. So when you were talking, something came up for me about, so you have the pebbles that you throw that create experiences that we perceive as negative, and then you can throw pebbles that we perceive as positive. What happens when you look at life as completely neutral and you don't have to throw any kind of predetermined pebbles in the pond that you hope have a certain outcome? So I was thinking about non-attachment and yeah, what is that middle way that does not necessarily has to do either or?
Very good question, Agatha. Thank you for asking it. Arriving at that state of complete neutrality is an incredibly valuable stage in one's journey. And in some pathways, they mistake that to be the end of a journey. They think that's the highest thing, to be absolutely neutral and not creating anything, just pure consciousness, pure being, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I celebrate anybody who's gotten to that stage. Jesus alludes to this in the Course in Miracles, where he says, the holy child of God will take a much deserved rest. Because they realize I don't have to create anything. I can just rest in the pure, essential nature, the neutrality of my being, and the truth that all events are neutral. So that's a wonderful state to get to. And if any of you have arrived at that state or touched on it, I celebrate you. But if you stay there for an extended period of time, this is going to happen. This is fucking boring. 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 But what that time of neutrality will do for you is it will wash away the judgments of good and bad, rights and wrongs, good and then you'll be free, as you were created by God, to create the experiences that you would like to have because you want to have them, not to get anybody's approval, not to show how courageous you are with how much you can endure of the ego shit. None of that stuff. You'll just be free to create the experiences that you would like to create and experience for yourself.
Perfect.
Because the power to create is really what that neutral state is. So the power of creation without creation is half of the equation. That's like the power of being without any expression.
Right.
And that is the primal power that came first. But it is in consciousness or God or life expressing that true joy comes.
Yeah.
There can be bliss and peace in the neutrality, but the joy comes through the means of unique expression. And how you, Agatha, will choose to do that will be absolutely unique to you. Past that stage of neutrality, there are no more books, there are no more pathways, there are no more, here's the way to do it, here's not the way to do it. Your mind and consciousness will be free of that, and you'll live in what is it I'd like to experience. For me, I don't need to get anything. I don't need to prove anything to anybody else. I don't need to serve anybody. What would I like to experience? And your choices will naturally move you into experience, but you'll never lose that kind of foundation of neutrality. So it's a wonderful place. It's an important place. It is the primal place, but of itself, it's not the full equation, because being without, or God without expression, is nothing.
Yeah.
And expression can't be without that neutral essence. It's like the power to choose and actually choosing. So they're really this beautifully matched set.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope that helps.
That does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi,
Yeah,
Terry.
Terry, I just put my hand up. What you just talked about, going from that place of neutrality to a place of what do I want to create? My mind or my ego mind says, "Wow, I can't wait." How do we know? Or what's maybe you could say some things about those states of contrast, the ego wanting to take charge and make control.
Well,
or by
you know,
that time, are you just not getting
at
ego
that time, you're
motives?
not really worried about ego so much,
Okay.
because you've seen it within yourself, and you're no longer actively creating that within yourself. We like to think of ego as this kind of standard, it's affecting everybody kind of thing, but it's a self-created thing. It's just everybody on earth is playing along. So you won't really have that, but it is a challenging place, and I'll tell you why. If you look at all of your choices and the way in which your mind makes choices now, you will discover there is many unconscious database of, and some are what's right and what's wrong, what should I create, what shouldn't I create, what do I think I would like based on the past versus. But once you've rested in that state of neutrality and you've truly freed yourself from all of those influences, because all those choices were rooted in duality contrast, and you begin to totally understand the unimaginable abstract freedom that we have as an aspect of God itself, you're entering an entirely different realm of consciousness. And nothing that you've known in earth can really come over with you and be a foundation on which you begin to build and choose. It is an entirely different thing. Joshua says, in the way of mastery, there's a journey to the kingdom, and then there's a ceaseless unfolding within it. There'll be an unfolding as you create and explore, but it won't be anything like what you've known before. And the only way to know it is to live it.
I'm tempted to ask what chapter does that come in? Roughly. It's probably a range of chapters.
Well, no, that's really after the way of mastery.
It's not an important question at all.
Yeah. Because this
But thank you, I can understand.
It has to be lived.
Experienced.
Yeah, it has to be experienced and lived uniquely through your experience. Because, we're all thinking there's like some universal fucking standard that I'm supposed to meet, and then everything will be okay. Well, the universal standard is you're utterly free. There's no standard. Oh shit, now what? So I hope that answered your question and didn't bewilder you too much.
No, it's amazing that I can know what you're talking about, even though I might not be experiencing it. Maybe I've experienced sometimes.
Well, this is the joy and the benefit of joining, because when somebody's in an embodied state and they're willing to share, I'm not sharing anything that you guys don't know. And as
Yeah.
I share it, it brings that knowing within you because it's here. I'm not giving it to you intellectually. I'm giving it to you as being,
Mhm.
as my own lived experience. And in some way that supports the awakening of that within you. Now, coming to live it for yourself, that's an entirely different matter. That's your own journey. Yeah. Nancy, you had your hand up and then you went back.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say this. In the early years, he talks about, going, like to a mall and standing up and saying, I am the Holy Son of God. And in this moment, I decree that all of my illusions have just had their last hurrah. And then he says, when everyone gets their jaws up off the floor, he say, aren't you glad we're all one? So I went ahead and took the Nancy model to the mall here and did that, and then walked through to the food court. And then walked through the rest of the mall just saying, hi, Christ, and I love you, and all that, and left. And I figured, I don't know if it's me or if it's the ego, to go back and continue to do that on, maybe Sundays or something like that, and just go and share with everyone, just not telling them what to do, not trying to change them, whatever, just, saying, I love you, and saying, that Jesus did not die for your sins, he's not our savior, whatever that would come through, and just basically go and spread the light. So I'm not sure if that's ego driven or if that's coming from spirit.
Well, you'll have to make that distinction for yourself.
Okay.
I can only tell you in my journey, I thought there were plenty of things that were spirit driven, only to realize they were spiritually ego driven, and I had egg on my face. The thing is, we're all going to do that. We're all going to step in it from time to time. But you brought something up, Nancy, that I'd like to talk about. So there's so much talk about love. And we all think we understand what that means. And we're all trying like crazy, bending over backwards to be loving. Do any of us know what the fuck that really means? I mean, because it doesn't seem like everybody appreciates we're being loving, or we try and be loving in this way, and then we try and be loving in that way, and blah, 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 blah. Just try this on for yourselves. When you run, rather than saying, I love you, because we've learned that that means, in some cases, approval, compassion, care, lots of stuff. Just in your own mind, try to replace I love you with I free you. Because if you love someone, I mean, how many of you remember the first time you told that to somebody and you're like, oh God, please say it back. Please say it back. Oh shit, don't not say it back. Because our ideas of love are so completely screwed up, and our ideas of spiritual love are almost screwed up to the nth degree, that it operates in our minds in a way that's not truly helpful. And why does Jesus talk about love? Because he does want to get our egos to be nicer to each other. But at some point you realize that what love is freedom. Radical, utter freedom. Because you free somebody, they're free to do whatever they damn well please. Not, I love you and I want only the best for you by my definition of what's best. My little myopic version of what's best, because that's what I want for myself. If you can set everyone and everything free, what you will realize is that you are free. And you'll even be free of the ideas of what being loving is, or what you think loving is supposed to look like. Because again, if we go back to Jesus's historical incarnate record, half the people that didn't like him were because they didn't think he was being loving. You see my point? He had a lot of detractors. And most of us are trying to be loving because we secretly want everybody to like us, and then we'll be safe. So just in your own mind, when you're tempted to say, I love you, or I love myself, or I love pizza, whatever the case is, just contemplate switching that for a time to I free you. I free myself. I free all of creation from my expectations and my projections and my hopes and my wishes for them, because they're sovereign Christed beings for self's sake. So work with that if you want. If not, throw it out. You can still try and break your back to be loving, but it's not going to get you anything.
That's
John
awesome.
Mark. Oh,
Yeah, thank you. That's so awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I agree. Woo!
Yeah, I mean, but think about how hard you try and be loving. I mean, it's
Yeah.
work, you know, and there's a whole lot of stuff that you couldn't do because you're supposed to be loving, and that's not freedom. Freedom is I'm free to, or I'm free not to.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Hey, Melissa, what you got?
I don't have a question. I just am so grateful for you being here tonight. And and your movies, your commentary, we have movie night once a week and we watch your movies. And it has just been so helpful and so insightful, and your lessons and your dialogues. I just want to thank you and just have so much love and gratitude for the work that you put in to help all of us wake up. So thank you so
Melissa,
much.
thank you for that expression. I receive every bit of it. And I'm grateful that anything that I've shared has been helpful to anybody. Sometimes I'm just amazed. Yep. So thank you. And thank you for having me here tonight.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John Mark. Rachel, do you want to, or shall I say? We know, though, you can't eat with platitudes. So can you tell us how we can make a love donation to your family, John Mark, so that anyone who's called to do that can do that?
All right. Here's the thing. I'm going to set you each free in this way. I know that there's this expectation of energy exchange, and we have this idea of, oh, I'm supposed to give. And then we come to the pressure of, well, how much do I give? Oh, shit. Oh, my God. So here's the thing. This is my stick with all my work. Turn within and just ask the Spirit, would you have me express gratitude? And if so, in what way? And if a note comes, send me a note. If nothing comes, don't do anything. If money comes, ask how much and then send that. You're free to give or not, because all I would want to receive from you is what you freely give, not what you give out of expectation or shoulds or must or have tos, because you can keep those for yourself, because I got no room for it. Deal?
Deal.
Deal, brother.
Yeah.
But what would be helpful is we don't know, at least I don't know where to send it.
Oh, of course. Yes. Well, thank you
Okay.
for that.
I
Yeah,
mean,
so
I
if you-
could,
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you go to onewhowakes.org, my website, in the upper right-hand corner is a little give button. If you click that give button, you can make a PayPal donation, or I'll put my address in the chat window if somebody wants to actually do it the old snail mail and old-fashioned way. I think we can also take Venmo. If you want to send me an email or a text, I'll have to ask Cindy exactly how we receive that. But the most important thing that if we're coming to closing is that I offer each of you absolutely everything that is mine to give. Every realization in the fiber of my being, every high, every low, every creation, the joyful stuff, the stinky stuff, all of my being, I give you freely. Take of it anything there that is helpful and make it your own.
Brother, you are, you you have no idea the impact that you have on us.
Well,
And it's, you know, there is no thing as time. And we found, I mean, this group just gelled, all these resources, everything came like there's no words to describe it. And even when we we spitballed the idea of saying, gee, wouldn't it be great to have John Mark actually come on our Friday meeting? And that was like, I don't know, Nancy, a week and a half ago or something. And here you are.
Yeah.
So, you know, fantastic. Thank you so much.
That's cool. I'm so glad you guys asked.
Yeah. Word is wow.
Well, you know, if it's wow, if you feel that sense of joy and excitement in your being, that's your own spirit. That's your own gnosis coming up to respond to the reflection of truth that's come. Claim it. It's in you. It's yours already. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to learn it. Just be it and live it, if you wish.
All in.
All in. Yeah, it's at some point we all have to go all in. I mean, we can
Yeah.
dabble for a bit, but we're not going to really come into it without going all in.
You say she was in Melbourne?
So anyone else, any of you quiet ones who sat back and just smiled and didn't ask any questions? Anybody want to share? I did put my address in the chat window if anybody wants to go that route. And maybe you guys can have me back.
Can you say again what your website is?
One Who Wakes, ONE, I'll put that in the chat window too.
Okay, thank you.
ONEWHOWAKES.org. onewhowakes.org.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll put my email in there too.
Oh, and the logo is amazing. The earth with the eye. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I got that in a vision. It's really cool.
And you can count on the fact we'll invite you back.
Yeah.
Well, I would hope so. 'Cause
Somebody
I've
answers my
had a hell of a
question,
lot of
I'll do
fun.
it. I'll answer it.
I've had a hell of a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. Woo.
Great. All right.
Thank you, John Mark.
All right. Play well, friends.
Thank
you.
you.
See you later.
You.
Thank you.
Bye, John Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Rachel, for having this platform.
And thank you very much for allowing other people to come and listen.
Oh,
I really appreciate that.
you're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. And for Nancy for inviting us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nancy. See you later.
Like Melissa says, the more the merrier. Yeah. Woo. I've adopted that.
Love you guys.
You can stop.